Welcome back to the video course on Soft Skill 1. The topic today that we will cover is 7 C's of communication. As you are aware that in our last lecture, we covered the integral parts of soft skill, the need and importance of effective communication in English for engineers, the 7 C's of communication, and out of these, the 5 C's that we discussed were conciseness, courtesy, correctness, clarity, and completeness. Today we will see the rest of the 2 C's, that are consideration and concreteness. So what is consideration in effective communication? By consideration we mean preparing every message with the receiver in mind and to try to put yourself in their place. Now how can you put yourself in their place? This can be done by questioning the basic idea that what will be your response to the query that is behind the content. What will you expect as learning from the module? So if you get that answer, clarity, then only you can find consideration in your communication. Then do not lose your temper. At times there will be people in front of you who will be asking questions which are not very appropriate. You might even find them as very silly questions. You might even find them that okay, they are not listening to you properly and they have not understood even the very simple or the basic fact. But then also, to be a good presenter, in order to have them satisfied with your delivery, you need to maintain that cool and calm. You need to answer their queries and get them fully confident that okay, they have invested their time and obtained something valuable out of it, and it has led to their value addition. Then be thoughtful and use the you attitude. Now what do you mean by the you attitude? By the you attitude we mean that what you want to listen is not important, but what the other person might feel with your response, with your explanation, that you have to keep in mind. How the other person will see to what you have explained to them. And keeping the you attitude, that is giving due respect, does not try any content that offends the other person, try to not include it. Don't be biased in your opinion in any of the responses that you have to their questions. If you are free from the stereotypes in your answers, then only you can include consideration in your communication. Next we have concreteness. So what is the role of concreteness in effective communication? By concreteness we mean being specific and definite. Now how can you be specific and definite in your answers? How can you be concrete with the subject matter that you have put on or that you discuss with? Use specific facts and figures. Do not talk, okay, some of the people. Do not talk like few numbers, but try to be exact in your answers. Then put action into words. See, people usually respect the ones who not only preach things, but they actually follow what they preach. So try to follow what you're actually preaching. The people in your team or your fellow mates or the surrounding circle, they must see that okay, firstly you have inculcated, you have yourself prioritized the things, you have yourself set the schedules in that way. Then only you can ask them to be dedicated and responsible. Then you have used more adjectives and adverbs. Whenever you're reading something, then the addition of adjectives, that is describing words, and adverbs, that is a little more detailed information to the verb, gives more clarity, gives more beauty to your answer. And at times it also helps the reader or the listener to understand what you want to communicate to the depth. Example, we can see here one, a student GMAT scores are higher. So this has no concreteness. You've only mentioned that, okay, there was a student or some group of students and their scores, GMAT is a management aptitude test, the scores are higher. So higher than what? Or higher than you're comparing from something that is not clear here, right? Instead, if we write it in the way last year, the GMAT scores averaged 600, but this year they have risen to 620 with concreteness. So here you are actually mentioning that, okay, last time the average that was obtained was 600, and this time there is an increase in the average that you can see from 600 to 620. And in this we are talking about the same exam that they appeared. So here this sentence has more clarity compared to the previous one. So this is how you can also include concreteness in your answer. Now, before we take the soft skill modules one by one in detail, it is necessary to brush up the basics in order to gain a better understanding on our communication skills. Here we are talking about the basics of English grammar and word usage, that is, enriching your vocabulary and following the proper rules of grammar. Now, by using these and by gaining good command over these, you can actually develop confidence in your communication. See, at times we are not able to express ourselves. At times we find us short of words. Like you're talking to someone and then you're finding that you're not getting the right word to use in this situation. What is the reason behind it? First reason is that your vocabulary is short. So you don't have enough words of like here we are talking about English language to express yourself. Second is that you are not confident. You're not confident because you've not practiced and you're thinking that I might have forgotten how correctly it is done. So this can be overcome once you go back to the basics and then you gain confidence, then you practice and then you improve your communication skills. So we will start with the details of the basic word usage and grammar, and then we will move on to enhancing our communication and soft skills. Okay. The first that we will go for a quick review or a quick recap of what you have studied in your elementary classes and is considered to be the building block of your language base in terms of English. So we are talking about parts of speech. As you can know from the name itself that speech means what you are speaking. So what all comes in as a part or as an element or as a segment of your speech. You must be knowing that there are 8 parts of speech and we have noun, pronoun, adverb, adjective, preposition, conjunction and interjection. And we'll just have a quick review of them one by one. Starting with noun, this must be the first thing that you must have learned in terms of grammar in your basics. So what is a noun? It is the name of a person, place or thing, right? A thing includes a quality. Now this quality can be any abstract quality like happiness, sadness, or it can be fear or a material something like gold, silver, copper, or a collection or a group or that you call like herd, army. That is also collective noun that we will go through in our next slides. And then we have state, that is a particular phase that it exists in, and action like cheat, mock, movement. So all these words, they come under the thing category in this one line definition. Then we also have noun phrase. Now what is a noun phrase? A noun is often called a noun phrase when it is a group of words that tell you who is the doer or who has done this action. Like a noun phrase can be a single word noun, like teachers love their pupils. So in this, you get to know that we are talking about a group of teachers in general, and this is what here is the noun phrase used in this sentence. The noun phrase is the teacher. Similarly, we have, but a noun phrase is usually longer than a single word because it consists of an adjective or a determiner plus a noun. So, a noun phrase is an extension of a noun and it describes the person, the place, or the thing in a more detail, in a more expanded form, and that is why it is called a noun phrase. Like a good teacher loves his pupils. So if you're using simply the word teacher, then this is a noun. But if you're using a good teacher, now you're describing the teacher with a quality here, as we can see, an adjective, and so this becomes a noun phrase, right? A good teacher here is a noun phrase. Now we will come to the kinds of noun that you have already used and that you've already heard in detail. So nouns can be classified into five kinds: proper noun, common noun, collective nouns, material nouns, and abstract nouns. We will go through them one by one. So the first category of noun is proper noun. Now, what is a proper noun? So a proper noun is the name of a particular person or a thing. So when you have a one-liner subject sentence and the subject usually there is the proper noun. If you are telling about the property, quality, the doer, then the subject in that sentence is the proper noun. That is name used for an individual person or place, river or mountain, etc. Examples can be like Mary, Rahul, Godavari, India, Everest, etc. Then we have common nouns. So a common noun refers to any and every person or thing of the same kind or class. So proper noun is a definite name, right? That is unique in nature. And when you're talking about common noun, it refers to a category or a set of things in general. Like for example, if you are naming a man Rahul, then he becomes a proper noun. But if you're talking about man or men in general, then that is a common noun. Like man is a social animal. Then in that sentence, man will be a common noun. Then we have the common noun and proper noun. You can see clearly in these sets, like the common noun here is girl and her name is Lata. So Lata is the proper noun. Similarly, dog, it is a common noun, and rover is the proper noun, that is the name of the dog. And this follows in the next example too. Then we have collective nouns, that is the third category of nouns. Now what is collective noun? A collective noun is the name of a collection, group of people or things of the same kind, class, team, government, jury, and federation. Let us see to the first line. A collective noun is the name of a collection or group of people. So anything, any set of nouns, when it is clubbed together and when they are of the similar nature, then you call them as a collective noun. It is made from the word collection or a group, or to collect, that is to gather. So a number of people, a number of things, a number of places, when you club them, then they form collective noun. Example, we can see here a class of students, a team of players, a federation of members, etc. Next we have the material noun. So a material noun is the name of a material, substance or ingredient things are made of. Let us look again. It is the name of a material, substance or ingredient things, right? They can be articles of food or drinks as well. So everything that you see around that is non-living in nature, that you club under the material noun, that you can see and touch. So they are tangible, but they are non-living in nature. All of them are called material nouns. Example, iron, copper, steel, gold, silver, rice, wheat, milk, tea, sugar, etc. Now, a material noun is also a common noun. Why? Because it is a category of a particular commodity. For example, tea. So now tea can be the North Indian tea, the South Indian tea, the Assamese tea, the Iranian tea. It can be of any sort or any category, but you can club all of them under the main head, that is tea. So here this is also a common noun. But a distinction you can see between the two as a common noun is usually a countable noun, but a material noun is an uncountable noun too. Like here you have the cow gives us milk. So the milk is a cow is a common noun in this sentence, but milk is a material noun here. So you have to find out the very close similarity between the two, but also there is a slight difference in the usage. Like cow has a number of breeds or varieties, and so this is a common noun, it is living in nature. But when you are using milk, milk is non-living in nature, so this you will mention under the category of material nouns. So basically you will just identify them on the basis that all common nouns are living in nature, and talking about the non-living, they are material nouns. Then we have abstract nouns. So what are abstract nouns? An abstract noun is the name of a quality, state or concept. So when you are discussing about some quality of an individual, like the happy child, the sad public, the bad day, then that is an abstract noun perhaps. Example, beauty, sweetness, childhood, love, etc. Now let us see the difference in the two, right? Because both of them are non-living, but there is also a difference here. The material nouns, also referred sometimes as concrete nouns, are name of material things. Now what do you mean by this term, material things? By material things, we mean things having a material form, shape or size. Okay. So whatever noun that you will put under the category of material noun, they will always be having some structure, size, shape, etc. An abstract noun are the name of qualities found in various kind of objects. But coming to abstract noun, you can never decide like what is the size of beauty, what is the state of love, what is the form of sweetness. This you can never determine. So abstract nouns are qualities that never tell you the state or the shape or the size. But coming to material nouns, you can tell us that okay, a big packet of tea, 1 kg of rice. In this way, we can make out the difference between material nouns and abstract nouns. Since they have no material form, they cannot be seen or touched. We can know of them only through our mind. So as we discussed, concrete nouns or abstract nouns like sugar sweetness, beauty, milk, hatred. We can see sugar, but we cannot see the sweetness. So sugar is a concrete noun and sweetness is an abstract noun, because abstract nouns are the things that are intangible in nature and you cannot see or touch them. In short, concrete nouns refer to physical properties and abstract noun to mental properties. So all the physical properties, that is all the things that you can measure, you can see the form, size, state, those that show the physical nature, they come into concrete nouns, and those that do not have any physical nature or physical presence and you just have to feel them in your mind having mental properties are said to be abstract nouns. Now the next that we will discuss is about the countability of nouns. So nouns are of two kinds from the viewpoint of countability. The first is countable nouns and the second is the uncountable nouns. So what are countable nouns? Nouns that can be counted are called countable nouns. For example, a book, that is one book, two books, an egg, that is one egg, two eggs. So if you can see and you can tell the number of a thing or number of a place, number of people, person, then you will club them under countable nouns. Example, generally a noun used in answer to the question how many. So if I'm able to answer, like I'm asking how many people were present, then you will answer 10 of them or 10 people. Then here people becomes a countable noun. How many films did you watch? I watched 6 films last month. So 6, you can tell the number, then the films here is the countable noun. How many flights are there from here to Delhi? There are only 2 flights. So here again flights become a countable noun. So note, common nouns and collective nouns are by and large countable. You will find most commonly that mostly all the common nouns and collective nouns, like example army. So in an army you can count how many soldiers are there. So in a herd of sheep you can find how many of them are there. In a bouquet of flowers you can count how many flowers are in the bouquet. So in this way they all are countable nouns. Then a noun used to answer the question how much is an uncountable noun. Now how you can see this uncountable noun? Example, if I ask how much of time did you spend on writing this? So you will say, okay, I spent 10 minutes. How much of sugar did you put in the tea? So you will tell us in like, okay, 2 spoons, 3 spoons, but you are not counting the granules or the crystals. In this way you can tell that you are talking about quantity and not number. So when you're talking about quantity, then it becomes an uncountable noun. When we want to refer to the quantity of these items we use values of measurement, then they are countable when you're talking about values. And when you're talking about quantity, then they become uncountable. Like how much of milk do you need? We need a liter of milk. The point to be noted here is that material nouns and abstract nouns are uncountable. Material nouns, if you remember, like silver, gold, paper, rubber, etc., they are uncountable in nature because you only talk about quantity, right? You, and abstract noun also. Abstract nouns like happiness, sadness, fear, misery, etc., they also are uncountable in nature. So are proper nouns, though they can be used as countable in special situations. Like these are two Indias. India is a proper noun, but when you're talking about here, these are two Indias, or there we see are the rural and the urban. So here we are talking about India in its two forms. One is the rural India that you see, and then is the urban or the developed country that you see. So here we have converted a proper noun into a countable noun. Then certain nouns can be used in both as countable and uncountable depending upon the context. So now how you can differ in terms of the context, let us see. The uncountable, I prefer chicken to fish. So here you're talking about preference. Now preference is something that has again come into abstract representation. So when you are considering this proper noun as abstract noun, then again it will become uncountable in nature. Now these chickens are lovely. So again this is something abstract in nature. Petrol catches fire easily. Shall we make a fire out here? in all these sentences you will see that we have converted the sentence not in terms of values or numbers but in terms of abstract representation, and so they have become uncountable in nature. Next we have uncountable nouns. As you've already seen that they cannot be counted, they are called uncountable. Example: milk, water, ink, sugar, butter, etc. Now let us move forward to the gender of the nouns. Now gender is of four kinds, like masculine, which denotes male; feminine, which denotes the female; common, which denotes both male and female; and neuter, it denotes neither male nor female. When we are talking about masculine, then all the proper nouns which are males, they come under the category of masculine. All the common nouns which are male, they come under the category of masculine. When all the proper nouns which are female, they come under the category of feminine. And there are also some group of common nouns which come under the category of both neuter and common, and this we will see in the following coming up examples. Like we have masculine and feminine forms. So at times the feminine of nouns, that is the female of nouns, can be formed by converting their masculine forms. Now how this conversion is done? There are two common methods. The first method by which you can convert the feminine gender into masculine, by adding ESS to the masculine form, we get the feminine form. Example, there is actor. If you add ESS to the actor at last, then it becomes actress. Then you have duke, and adding ESS, it becomes duchess. Similarly, god becomes goddess, host becomes hostess, hunter becomes huntress. The only thing that we have done here is at the end of the proper noun or the common noun, we have added ESS. The point to be noted here is that English has only a small number of feminine forms. So only few you can pick and just add the ESS to make them feminine. Professional activities are often referred to in the common gender, like feminine forms as authoress, poetess, directress, inspectress. These are no longer in use. So if you are talking about whether a male poet or a female poet, you will only write poet. So, same is the case with inspector, same is the case with director. This is the change that has been included. Like she is the director of this institute, not directress, right? She is an inspector of police. All here are the feminine forms that are common for both the male and female. Then we have the second method by which we can make a masculine form into a feminine form is by adding she or girl or woman. Like we have he goat gets converted to she goat. A student gets converted to a woman student. A businessman to a businesswoman. A policeman to a policewoman. A sportsman to a sportswoman. A salesman to a saleswoman. And a statesman to a stateswoman. So the only thing that we have done here is simply added she, girl or woman to the masculine form, and it gets converted to the feminine form of the gender. Now let us move on to the next category of gender, that is common or dual gender. By common gender we can say that both the male and the female share the same gender for such category of words like the nouns denoting profession. So if you're talking about the profession or the occupation, then they are in the common gender. You do not make a difference in terms of the male or the female. Example, doctor, minister, editor, reader, engineer, musician, scientist. So a scientist, whether he's a male scientist or she's a female scientist, you will only write scientist. Similarly, we have author, neighbor, secretary, foreigner, novelist, captain, friend. You do not say that she is my female friend, he's my male friend. You simply say meet my friend, or he is my friend, or she is my friend. Here you are using the pronoun, but you are not making any change to the noun in order to disclose or show the gender. Then we have singer, child, infant, person, speaker, clerk, judge, player, student, etc. Now let us move on to the second category of parts of speech, that is pronoun. Now the pronoun is made of two words, that is pro and noun. By pro we means for or acting as. So a word that is in place of noun, acting for noun, or serving the purpose of noun is said to be a pronoun. Pro, that is acting as a noun. Then here is from where you can get the meaning of pronoun, that is a word that is acting as noun in a sentence is said to be a pronoun. A pronoun is used as a substitute for a noun or a noun phrase. In other words, it has all the characteristics of a noun. Now, if pronoun has all the characteristics of a noun, why are we using it separately? The only reason of including or making use of this pronoun is to avoid the repetition of the proper name or the common name of the noun. For example, if you are writing 5 sentences on a dog, or maybe on a cow or any such animal, instead of writing 5 times the name of the dog or the name of the cow, you will replace it with a pronoun the second time you mention a sentence about it. The first time you will mention the noun, but after every time after the first, you will mention the pronoun. So a pronoun is used to avoid the repetition of noun or the noun phrases. Example, Suresh went to the market because Suresh wanted to buy a pen. Here we have already told that Suresh went to the market. Now this can be modified with a pronoun like Suresh went to the market because he wanted to buy a pen. Now here Suresh, the second time, has been replaced with the pronoun he. Similarly, we have walking is a form of exercise. Walking is easier than swimming. This sentence again can be modified as walking is a form of exercise. It is easier than swimming. So here, instead of using second time the word walking, we are using the pronoun it. Now we will move on further with the different kinds of pronouns. There are 8 kinds of pronouns, like personal pronouns, possessive pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, reflective pronouns, relative pronouns, interrogative pronouns, and indefinite pronouns. Now we will look at all of these one by one, starting from the personal pronouns. Example, I, we, you, he, she, it, and they. So these are total 7 in number, and these 7 are called personal pronoun. On the basis of their role in a speech, they can be divided into three. So whether you are using them as the subject or as the object, or in the third speech, that is in the reporting speech, you can modify their use and they are said to be first, second and third person. That's all in this video. Thank you.